Okay, so far what we have discussed about the nature, origin, meaning, scope, and importance of political science. Now we have to discuss the very approaches used in the study of political science. There are three approaches: normative approach, empirical approach, and finally feminist approach. But we will discuss the feminist approach in a very short and brief style. First of all, we need to know about what is an approach. As I have told you in my previous lectures, that actually you are approaching, or you are actually looking towards a particular phenomenon from your standpoint. That is actually called an approach. This approach, or we use the study of political science, that political science can be viewed, political science can be discussed from a particular angle of thoughts. These thoughts include, first one, traditional approach, which is called normative approach, and the second one is empirical or scientific approach. Coming to discuss the normative approach. What is a normative approach? Normative approach to the study of politics is known as traditional approach. The works in political science from Plato to Karl Marx, they are considered as traditional study of political science. Features. If I ask the first, that idealistic and institutional based features. For example, in a modern, whenever we are comparing, modern approach is actually afterward the Second World War. The Second World War, we discussed that certain behavioral things, they were included to the study of politics as well as political science. First of all, it it was just like a state-centric, a government-centric things were there, and other common masses, different sections of societies, different peoples, different thoughts, the organs of the state, the application of policy, the repercussions of policies, the advantages and disadvantages of the policies. These kind of things, these kind of discussions came too late afterwards the arrival of modern or scientific approach. As far as the idealistic approach is concerned, we have been told that Plato wrote Republic, for example, the statesman and the laws. But these particular compilations of books, or we can say the works of Plato, these included only and only on the basis of certain moralistic and idealistic perspective, that how a city-state could be run better on certain moral values and these things, without knowing the actual reality, that which kind of policy, what kind of thought should be better for the state as well as its citizens or individuals. The first factor or the first feature is about the emphasis in this approach is on the norms and ideals. You look towards your society. You have your societal traditions and norms. If you want to dig out the very purpose of these societal norms, you would find that these norms and these traditions are actually used for a better life, and the subsequent generations have followed those norms and tradition without knowing the actual reality, without knowing the actual history, but actually they are following because they are good in nature, they are good for society. That is why society at large followed those principles. But what is idealistic and institutional according to normative approach? The emphasis in this approach is on norms and ideals. It does not concern itself with things as they are. You have books, you should go to the books and follow me, or in your books. Find out these things in your books. Open your books. It does not adopt a realistic concern itself with things as they are. Through the ages, political thinkers have focused their ideas and theories on what they perceive to be the ideal for the state. They prescribe certain forms of conduct rather than describe events or facts. This approach was inclined to ignore what is and give more importance to what should be. I mean to say that this particular approach, in its idealistic and institutional feature providing what should be best, what should be good, what should be better, without knowing the actual reality that what is good, what is best, and what is better. The second one is value-oriented or value-based values. Normative thinkers emphasized ethical and moral values such as good, bad, right, wrong, just, unjust, and etc. It is a value-loaded approach. It was more concerned with setting standards for organizations and governance of society. If we want to link this value-based and want to apply these values upon the philosophy of Plato in his ideal state as well as philosopher king. He thought that philosophy in itself is a virtuous, knowledge, and philosophy is providing virtuous knowledge, and this virtuous knowledge should be adopted by a person should also be virtuous. So this is just like what we say that it had adopted value-based things. Utopian and optimistic. What is utopian? Normative theorists are based on assumptions. It believes that a better system is possible. Accordingly, normative thinkers suggest the ways and means to achieve this better system. In that sense, this approach is optimistic. As I have mentioned, the ideal state concept in its particular angle should be best linked towards the utopian and optimistic perspective of this approach. For example, Plato thought that an ideal state should be free of errors, where education system should be provided, where the brave should join the army and defend the state while intellectuals should rule the state. This is just like what we believe that according to him in his utopian or optimistic approach, that a best and an ideal state is possible when we apply these principles. Institutional, formal, and legal approach. Political science is a study of state and government. We all know that. Okay. It studies the formal legal structures of the political system, state and government. Okay. Study of the origin of the state, functions of the state, structure of the government, and structure of the state. Philosophy and history. Philosophy and history, philosophical, legal, and institutional, because this approach having dominance or dominated by philosophy and history, from Plato, Aristotle to Rousseau, used philosophical deductive method in adopting the normative approach to make inquiry. Now, how can we evaluate it? Like, for example, the most important factor is that how can we say that this approach was not that much what we believe that futuristic, or it had weaknesses, so that is why it was replaced by another approach which is called empirical approach. When we discuss evaluation actually means that we are actually giving an appraisal. What were the points that did not happen, for example, the factors that did not happen, and these drawbacks later on invited another approach to replace this approach through scientific means of inquiry. The first, like what we say, how to evaluate it, find out in books that ideas too much theoretical, having no realistic perspective. The second thing we can say that, as I have asked this question, that in modern times, for example, in contemporary world, we see political scientists, we see political thinkers, but we do not see philosophers. Why? I am leaving this question, and you should come up with a proper answer to answer this question, that in modern political world, we are actually finding out our questions, our answers in the sayings and in the writings of the political thinkers as well as political scientists, but not in the writings of philosophers. The basic reason responsible for the behavioral or empirical approach was industrial revolution and other social problems they needed to be answered. Because we know that European society, they went from a city-state to the feudal and finally to the industrial society, where a nuclear setup, where a joint family structure, traditional way of thinking, traditional education, and these kind of things, they were replaced by industrial society. The industrial societies actually wanted technical, skilled, and educated people. So the repercussions, or we can say the disadvantages, or somehow we can say that industrial revolution brought problems along with itself. The 20th century political scientists were unable to find solution to real life political problems. And this was the actual century where the modern political science was founded. Previously, it was a part of political history, political thought, social problems and societal needs, etc. But the modern political science actually got founded in 20th century. And it was founded just because that the Industrial Revolution and other European societal problems, they posed a threat for societal cohesiveness as well as national integration. So major thoughts or major ideologies or major thoughts they developed into the 20th century. We saw the real life problems at this stage. The interest in philosophical speculation declined because the world was actually wrestling with the real world, and real world questions demands for real solutions. The empirical approach was viewed as a supplement to the normative approach, but after 1940s, after the Second World War, the empirical approach monopolized the study of politics. Graham Wallas, Arthur Bentley, Charles Merriam are some empirical thinkers. Graham Wallas, in his book Human Nature in Politics, introduced greater realism and psychological dimension in political studies. Arthur Bentley, in his book, introduced sociological dimensions in politics. Now, the features of this particular approach includes modern. Now, how can we say that empirical approach provided a modern perspectives on politics? Modern approach actually started in the 20th century, but empirical tradition can be traced back to the earliest days of political thought. It can be seen in Aristotle's attempt to classify constitution, where he compared constitutions around the world and then finalized his theory on the classification of government, where monarchy having a disfigured form like tyranny, aristocracy having a disfigured form oligarchy, polity having a disfigured form like democracy. So these particular approaches or these particular steps were taken through scientific evaluation of the constitution at that time. In Niccolo Machiavelli, views towards the state's craft were realistic, and Montesquieu's theory of government and law, like classification as well as separation of powers and checks and balances. In the 20th century, it monopolized. Who monopolized? The empirical approach monopolized the study of politics because its nature was modern. I mean to say, the socio-psychological thoughts were included to the study of politics. So that is why we believe that it had scientific roots. That is why we call it a modern approach. Second one is emphasizing on scientific tools and methods. We discuss what is science and what is scientific. There's no need to explain it further. But coming to this point, empiricists studied political processes using scientific techniques as a survey, research, observation, questionnaires, samplings, as well as certain measurements which can be proven through scientific techniques and tools. A normative approach to electoral studies may philosophize on why people should vote, whereas empirical approach would conduct surveys and interviews of voters to find out the actual voting behavior and process. It is a value-free approach. As we have talked on that, it provided a scientific understanding and scientific inclusion into the very tools and methods of politics. Same was the case that it had value-free approach towards politics because it has to deal with the what really exists. Suppose if I'm to ask a question that why people should vote party A and why people should vote to party B. Okay, so if I'm to answer these questions, I need to address these questions that providing certain answers that people are actually going after this party. These are the reasons. People are going after this party because these are the reasons. And these reasons will be thoroughly examined, and then we would find a way to provide a final say or conclusion that yes, these were the reasons, that is why, according to these reasons, people either favoring party A or party B. The next one is interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary. What is interdisciplinary? While studying political issues, empirical scientists or empiricists welcome social sciences like sociology, psychology, and economics. It believes that political behavior of a man is only one aspect of his total behavior, and so the interdisciplinary study would help political analysts. For example, a vote is having a political background, social background, legal background, okay, and more importantly, sociological and psychological background. If I'm to ask a person that why are you favoring party A, he or she might have a lot of answers, and these answers would give me an in-depth analysis that this person is actually favoring this party because of certain socio, political, economic, as well as psychological reasons. That is why people are actually following party A or party B. Interdisciplinary approach is about to study political phenomena or a problem through its different dimensions. As I have told you, that vote might have psychological, social, political, economic, and legal perspective. So to include all these processes, we say that actually it is an interdisciplinary approach. For example, you have an example in your book. To study voting behavior of the people, we should study one's loyalty to caste, religion, and political party. And it is common tradition in the third world countries, particularly the decolonized states like India, Pakistan, and rest of the nations who are actually participating into the due political process. You cannot go outside of the caste, for example. You cannot go outside the family. You cannot go outside of a particular belief, or we can say tribe, etc. These are certain parameters where you got involved into this political process. For example, if there's a nationalist party, for example, and she is having a manifesto for that nation or for that nationality or that subnational group, a betterment, and another party is not having these kind of programs, and you belong to that subnationality or nationality, there will be no choice but you have to opt for that party where she is posing or claiming or actually striving and struggling for your rights. This is to make what? Caste, color, brotherhood, clan, tribal, or many other we can say loyalties descriptive. Descriptive in the sense that it means seeks to analyze and explain, where the normative approach is prescriptive in the sense that it makes judgment and offers recommendation. I mean to say, it has to describe, it has to evaluate, it has to explain a phenomena, particularly political phenomena. As I have told you, to see that phenomena from different angles. Okay? And realistic in the sense that empirical theories are realistic. These theories are not based on assumptions and speculations.